A skeleton in a Florida swamp died face down and dry. That body, pulled from the peat of Windover Pond in Florida, tells you something strange. Half of the people buried there had brains still preserved inside their skulls. Preserved in a swamp, in a place where it rained for months at a time. And not one of them lived under anything you would call a roof. So how did they stay alive? How did any of your ancestors survive weeks of endless rain, without walls, without shingles, without a single dry room to retreat into? Start with what you already assume, because your assumption is the first thing that has to break. You picture rain as an emergency. You picture your ancestors huddled and miserable, waiting for it to pass. But for most of human history, rain was not the exception. In much of the inhabited world, the wet season was simply a third of the year, arriving on schedule, staying for months. You cannot wait out something that lasts 100 days. You have to live inside it. And they did. The tools they used were older and smarter than you think. Look first at the body itself. Your skin is nearly waterproof, layered with a protein called keratin, the same stuff in your fingernails, packed into a barrier that sheds water and holds warmth in. But your ancestors did something your skin could not do alone. They greased it. Across the far north, people coated their skin and clothing in animal fat and rendered oil, and the effect was the same principle a modern raincoat uses, a surface that water beads off instead of soaking in. A wet body loses heat roughly 25 times faster than a dry one. Grease bought them hours. In the cold hours were the whole game. Then look up at what they built without building a house at all. The anthropologist Richard Lee spent years in the 1960s living with the Juhansi people of the Kalahari, and he watched a grass shelter go up in under an hour. Bent saplings, a lattice of branches, a thick thatch of grass laid so the stems point downward. Water hits the grass and runs down the outside of each stem, dripping clear of the sleeping space. It is not a roof. It is a slope. And a slope is all rain respects. But here is where it gets clever, and here is your first rehook. A shelter keeps the rain off your head. It does nothing about the ground. And in a downpour, the ground is the thing that kills you. Think about it. Water pools. It runs downhill and collects exactly where a tired body wants to lie down. Sleep in a puddle for one night in the cold, and you may not wake up. So your ancestors read the land the way you read a street sign. They chose the high ground, the gentle rise, the lip of a slope where water would flow past instead of gather. They dug small channels around the sleeping area so runoff had somewhere to go. Archaeologists find these drainage grooves around ancient hearths and living floors, faint scratches in the dirt that meant the difference between a dry night and a fatal one. The shelter mattered, the site selection mattered more, and they had one weapon rain seems designed to destroy. Fire. You think of fire and rain as enemies, and on open ground they are. But your ancestors kept fire alive through the wettest weeks of the year, and the way they did it reveals how deeply they understood their world. They stored dry tinder in pouches against the skin. They split wood to reach the dry heartwood inside a soaked log. They built the fire under an overhang or under that downward thatched grass, and they never let it fully die, because relighting was the hard part, not feeding. A banked fire covered in ash can hold a live ember for many hours. In the morning, you breathe on it, and it wakes. Polly Wiesner, who studied the Juhansi for decades, found that firelight did something beyond warmth. The daytime talk was practical, about food and tasks. But the talk around the night fire, in the dark, in the wet season when there was nowhere to go, turned to stories, to the ancestors, to the invisible rules that held the group together. Rain forced people close. The fire made the closeness bearable. And out of those long trapped nights came the myths that told them who they were. Sit with that, because it is the twist that reframes everything you have heard so far. You have been picturing survival as a fight against the rain. Keep the water off, keep the fire lit, keep the body warm. But the deeper survival was social, and the rain was the thing that built it. When you cannot travel, when the ground is mud and the rivers are high and hunting is poor, you are stuck with the same 20 or 30 people for months. That is a pressure cooker. It could tear a group apart. Instead, it did the opposite. The wet season was when human beings talked, remembered, argued, forgave, and wove the stories that bound them for the rest of the year. The rain did not just test your ancestors. It made them a people. So the question changes. It was never really, how did they keep dry? It was, how did they turn 100 trapped days into the glue of a whole society? Look at the record, and the pattern repeats. James Sussman, who also lived among the Kalahari people and wrote about their working lives, described something that should stop you cold. These were not people scraping by at the edge of starvation, dreading the wet season. They worked, on average, remarkably few hours to feed themselves, and the rest was rest, talk, and craft. The rain did not break a fragile system. It was folded into a way of living that had absorbed rain for tens of thousands of years. Endless rain was not a crisis to a people whose entire year was shaped around it. It was Tuesday, and they read it coming. This is the part that feels almost like a sixth sense until you understand it. Your ancestors watched the sky, the wind, the behavior of animals, the smell of the air before a storm, that sharp green scent you can still catch, which comes from oils plants release, and a compound called geosmin that soil bacteria give off when rain is near. Your nose can detect geosmin at a few parts per trillion. That is not a coincidence. That sensitivity is inheritance. Your ancestors who could smell rain coming had time to gather fuel, move to high ground, and thatch the shelter before the first drop fell. The ones who could not got wet. Over enough generations, the smell of coming rain became something your body simply knows. Now picture the scene in full, because you can, using everything you now understand. A rise of ground above a Florida wetland 8,000 years ago. The rain has come, and it will not stop for weeks. There is no house. There is a low dome of bent saplings and grass, the stems pointing down, water running off in threads. Around it, a shallow groove cut into the earth carries the runoff away, downhill. Under the thatch, a fire breathes low and orange, banked with ash, fed with heartwood split from a soaked log. The people are greased against the cold, close together, and they are not miserable. They are talking. An old woman is telling the children where the dead go, and the story she tells tonight is the same story her people will carry into the dry season and the season after that. Outside, the rain is a wall. Inside the ring of firelight, a civilization is quietly being made. That is the last rehook, and it points straight at you. Because you think you have escaped all this. You have a roof. You have walls and a furnace and a phone that tells you the forecast a week out. And yet, when was the last long storm where your power went out? Remember what happened. The screens went dark. The distraction stopped, and you found yourself, maybe for the first time in months, actually talking to the people you live with by candlelight with nowhere to go. You felt it as an inconvenience. Your ancestors felt it as the shape of the year. The instinct that made you light a candle and pull the people close is the exact instinct that kept your line alive through 100,000 wet seasons. You did not learn it. You inherited it. So look again at that body in the swamp, brain intact, dry inside a world of water. It was never a mystery of engineering. There was no roof to find. There was a slope, a fire, a smell of rain in the wind, and a circle of people who had learned that the way to survive endless rain was not to fight it, but to gather beneath it and become something the rain could not wash away. The skeleton in the peat did not survive the rain. The people around its fire did, because they turned the storm into the reason to stay.